Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. Serious, what is the downright scariest thing that has ever happened to you, be it paranormal or otherwise? When I was 16 I was at a local mall by myself. I noticed a large man kept going where I would go, and just gave me a bad gut feeling. After about 15 minutes of him following me around I go into a Starbucks and sure enough he follows. No more than 10 seconds later I hear the bathroom door open and someone walking in. The man stopped in front of my stall door and just stands there, facing it for what felt like minutes. He was so close to the door his boots were pretending into the stall. Scariest few minutes of my life, and I'm still so mad at myself for isolating myself in a bathroom. I was about 5 or 6 years old living in Dallas and I was in the nurse's office when the tornado warning siren went off. The nurse ran out of the room towards the other side of the school, leaving me behind. To the right of me was the cafeteria and on my left was a wall with floor-to-ceiling windows. It was so dark outside that I could barely see anything out the window. The sound of the siren combined with the intense wind scared me the most. Then the vice principal came running up the ramp, scooped me in her arms and asked whose class I was in. I remember walking into the classroom and seeing my teacher with a flashlight in her hands huddled with the other students in the middle of the classroom. 16 years later May is still my hero. I fell asleep on the couch at around 6 to 7 p.m. and woke up at 4 a.m. in the middle of my backyard when it was raining. Jesus, I always try to forget about this. Whenever it gets stuck in my head, I find writing about it helps, so may as well. This was 3 or 4 years ago. Me and my friend were driving down a road in a very rural area. It was the middle of the night and almost pitch black out. I was driving, we were approaching an intersection. Still no lights, again. Very rural area. My friend was trying to get my attention, and I caved and turned my head to look at her just as we were about to pass the intersection. I was petrified. We were passing through the intersection and a pickup truck was coming straight at us. I saw it in the window behind her. She didn't notice. The driver slammed on the brakes, honking at us, but it was too late. The truck hit us. I don't remember much at this point, just a lot of screaming. Woke up a bit later on the side of the road I think. And holy SHT the pain. I couldn't even really tell where the pain was coming from, it just felt like it was everywhere. I could barely move. I woke up again later in the hospital and was just sort of there for a bit, half awake half unconscious. After a few days of me being fully awake and conscious, 2 of my friends come into the room with the nurse. One of them breaks down into tears as they tell me my friend that was in the car with me died in the crash. I didn't even really understand it until I was released from the hospital. I had a broken arm and leg, cuts and bruises everywhere, and a mild concussion. For the next few days I just skulked around my apartment. I didn't go to work or anywhere, really, as hard as my roommates tried. I just sat around, mindlessly watching TV or staring out the window. My roommates hung around more, too. More for me than out of mourning. The thought of suicide never even really crossed my mind. All I could think of was that I was responsible for my friend's death. I killed her. After a few days, my roommates came back, but they brought someone with them. It was the truck driver. I didn't recognize him at first, but he immediately broke down into tears when he saw me and started to beg me to forgive him. We both blamed ourselves for what happened, not always about the crash, but about anything. It really helped me feel better to learn that he was as guilt-ridden as I was. The day before I last saw him, I left my apartment for the first time in a week. I haven't seen the dude since then, and I hope he's made peace with himself. Sorry for the long post, but I felt it was relevant. Flying from Denver to NYC, about 30 seconds after the plane leaves the ground the left engine explodes, likely a bird they said. I'm pretty calm, but start getting freaked out when I notice the stewardess are all crying. Wow, so I don't wish this situation upon anyone. But if it ever does happen to anyone you must get on the next flight. Some of my fellow passengers opted to take a train home. If I'd done that I'm positive I would have never flown again. Happening right now, actually. I live in Northern California. I wasn't terribly far away from the Rocky and Jerusalem fires while they were still burning. Now there's a brand new fire, arguably worse, and much closer to where I live. I'm terrified my family is going to lose our home that I've lived in all my life. I'm scared that my friends are going to lose their homes. I'm just really scared. Opening my front door to see 12 armed police officers about to raid the house. I was watching The Exorcist when I was 16 and my grandmother came home and told me to turn it off because that was the last movie my grandfather watched the night he died. Still can't watch that movie to this day without freaking out about it, and that was 18 years ago. 2 of my friends were spending the night at my parents' house. We were all still in high school. My bedroom was a room away from the kitchen, connected by a pantry and hallway. I heard the back door handle jiggle, which meant a cat wanted to go outside. So I went to let it out and get a drink. As I walked into the kitchen I noticed there was no cat there, and the door to the basement was wide open, which we always left closed and locked. So I closed and locked the basement door, a tad unnerved, but it didn't matter. A couple hours later I hear the fridge door close. I noticed that because I didn't hear it open, but it was in a different room, so that's not too weird. What made it weird was that I didn't hear anyone walk down the stairs, or by my bedroom from the front of the house. Unnerved, I took a knife and went into the kitchen. I see no one in there, but immediately noticed smoke coming up from under the basement door. I opened it up and it was filled with smoke. Close it, got my parents up. Call the fire department, go get ready to sleep in my car for the night, as it was about 4 a.m. at this point. A firefighter comes and tells us it's okay to go back into the house now. For some reason the furnace had caught fire inside, and was filling the house with carbon monoxide. Had my friends and I went to sleep we'd all be dead. Still have no clue what jiggled the doorknob or closed the fridge, but it kept me alive. I was kidnapped when I was 9 years old. I was walking to my friend's house, which was right up the street, maybe 6 houses down or so. Not far at all. My mom had told me to be home for dinner at 6 p.m. Well, when I was walking I noticed a man following me in his car. Anyway, I started walking a little faster. Kept thinking to myself, only a few more houses. 3. 2. Then he stopped, got out, and grabbed me. Quicker than you can say. Actually, I can't think of anything. But it happened really fast. Luckily, my friend's dad was sitting on the porch and saw this happen. He finally decided it was best to straight up punch through the window, and pulled me out of the car with his then bloody hand. He carried me back to my house while I was crying and shaking, and told my mom everything. I was traumatized. Sleep paralysis. Just being unable to move while in bed and see a figure with blood-red eyes looking at you. When I was younger and visiting my parents, I took my Stumpy, never met a stranger lab mutt out to go potty around 5 a.m. At the end of the super long driveway I ran into a guy just kind of hanging out in the pine trees. He asked for a cigarette, and when I said I didn't have one he wished me a good night. I get halfway up the driveway and she suddenly lunges behind me, practically ripping my shoulder out of the socket. Just going absolutely apeshit, something I have never and still haven't seen from her to this day 8 years later. He was following me up the driveway. Later I remember my family remarking over the few days I was there that it smelled like cigarettes around the front porch and garage. This guy had probably been hanging around our house. I don't know what would have happened had my dog not flipped her shit. I was on a Girl Scout trip staying in this older house in Sandy Hook. I think I was around 11 or 12. We were all in bed, and for some reason I wanted to go downstairs. I remember hearing the parents talking in the downstairs kitchen, and I was walking toward where I saw a lit-up room. I freak out and try to retrace my steps back to where I thought the adults were. I wander around for a bit and finally find a staircase. Weird, the staircase was blocked by a couch at the bottom. I was followed by a man in a car one night and I'm 100% certain he would have tried to abduct me. This was in Chicago after I helped chaperone a debate team trip. I was walking back to my car and the guy passed me, then circled back and passed again. I honestly thought he thought I was a hooker and remember thinking he'd be disappointed if he stopped. I crossed and crouched behind a parked car for a minute, and when I stood up he was gone. Kept walking, and when I got to the next intersection he was hiding on a cross street. I was almost back to my car and he was still following me when I ran into a group of teenage-ish girls. Thankfully the girls walked me to my car and texted me his license plate, but I don't think I've ever felt so unsafe in my life. I mentioned it before, but what the hell? I had what was said to be a severe anxiety attack in the middle of the night. I woke up not being able to breathe, so I turned to my side to get my girlfriend's attention. When I rolled over, she was mangled and her head was almost completely severed. I don't know how long it lasted, but all I could think about was that I didn't stop whatever got to her. Apparently I was experiencing psychosis and it lasted a good 12 hours with other visuals. Therapists said it was probably led by my anxiety attack and already having PTSD. Girlfriend was alright. She was sleeping and after I reached out to touch her the image disappeared. Still the worst thing I've ever seen. That's after 4 deployments. After our son was born we had many incidents of his toys going off and making noise when everyone was downstairs. One time we had one go off in the middle of the night in our master bedroom. One time I woke up and my eyes were super dry. Like, beyond description. I opened them and it was pitch black, couldn't see a thing, but I knew there was light in the room since my alarm went off, so it must have been 8 AM AT at least. I literally felt my eyelids to make sure they weren't closed, so yeah, waking up blind is not a fun thing to have happen. Fell 75 feet off a cliff when I was in my 20s. I was pretty sure I was going to die, but I got lucky. I was asleep in bed one night and my mom, who had recently taken interest in home security, had put a wooden dowel in my bedroom window and forgot to tell me about it. Anywho, I found out later that there was an electrical fire in the hallway outside my bedroom, and I woke up to smoke slipping into my bedroom from beneath my door. I spent what felt like 10 minutes trying to get my little fingers around it and slip it out of the window sill but couldn't. Finally, my mom got into my bedroom, grabbed me and wrapped a wet towel around me, and supermommed us out of the house, and me safely out of trouble. Thankfully, it wasn't some huge, home-destroying catastrophe. My fiancé and I live in the sticks. We were laying in bed during a power outage about a month ago after burning a gibber, just talking and watching the storm roll out. Suddenly I break out in goosebumps, all of my body hair standing on end. There's a humming noise that's getting higher in frequency and volume. The neighbor's dogs start growling and whining. The yard and field is pitch black, the stars now out. I ask him, "Do you feel that?" At the same time he says, "Something's coming." The buzz cut out. A bright flash so white that it dazzled my eyes for the next hour seemed to light up the backyard and a mile around it. It resembled a close lightning strike in its brilliance, except the intensity seemed to amp up in brightness and then slowly dim out. I could see my neighbors combine over a mile away across their field. I saw their house, which you can even see when it's overcast and day, and that's when my internal freak-out sensors started braying. I look up too and it's like staring into the light at the dentist. I couldn't see jack shit. The neighbor's dogs started going haywire, not just barking but really howling. We had a baby monitor that, besides sound, also monitored the baby's breathing and set off an alarm, SIDS. The alarm would go off on the baby's side to jar them, and also the parent's remote. One night we forget to turn up the sound and in the middle of the night I roll over and see the lights pegged. Darting into the nursery I suddenly find no fucking baby in the crib. I suddenly realize my wife must have brought the little guy to our bed and forgot to turn off the alarm. My whole world just stopped with absolute abject terror. She screams, "WHO took my baby?" Somehow, through massive adrenaline rush and massive fright, I Sherlock Holmes it. House alarm is still armed, no windows or doors could have been opened. The nursery door was closed. He must still be in the room. I fall to my hands and knees and lo and behold little dude is on his belly looking at me, smiling. Even thought mom is hysterical. I didn't sleep that night. Little monster has had us guessing ever since. So one night I'm carpooling with my friend to work. Just her and I driving down this rarely used back road that just so happened to be a shortcut to work. I'd have to say it was about 10 in the evening, and there weren't any other cars in front nor behind us. There were no lights on this road whatsoever. Just the ones coming from the car's headlights. So we're driving along for a good 15 minutes, and then we suddenly come to a stop sign that's literally in the middle of nowhere. Heaven forbid we make a rolling stop in all this traffic, right? So the car is fully stopped, and I'm looking out the window. It's about this time that I see this lady standing there on the corner. She looked to be about in her mid-40s and was in something that resembled a white coat and pants. But seeing someone standing there struck me as being extremely odd. I'm thinking to myself, who in their right mind would be out here in the middle of the night? Suddenly my friend looks me dead in the eye and proceeds to tell me that she has absolutely no effing clue as to what I'm talking about. No lady. No nothing. So there we were idling at a stop sign in the middle of nowhere, with absolutely nobody else around. I suddenly get this sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach and I start to freak out a bit. I'm not crazy. I know exactly what I saw. And we take off like a bat out of hell. From that point on, I refused to look in the rearview mirror, and pretty much kept my eyes closed for the duration of that ride. Not much was said after that. Nothing at all. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, Subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.